Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Joel LaFlamme from Hey Commie on TikTok. I'm just on the Walk Off podcast with Adam and Scott. They're some of the best guys out there, and check them out. Give them a subscribe if you haven't. Some of the best baseball content out there.
So pleased to be joined by today's guest, the man behind the Hey Commie TikTok account that exposed dozens of pitchers to cheating with sticky stuff. Joel LaFlamme, welcome to the Walk Off, man. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Scott. Great to be here. Excited.
Yeah, fellow Albertan. We got Edmonton boy with us. Love it.
That's right. Yeah. Happy to be here. Happy to, be opened up again. And I don't know if we're getting baseball back, but it's been a wild season.
I know July 1st, I actually managed to go and check out the Okotoks Dogs game. That was the first day that they kind of had opened up and had a full stadium. And yeah, man, baseball's sort of back. It's cool.
Yeah, it's about time. It's about time.
All right, my man, let's start with your TikTok account.
Okay.
Because this thing blew up, man, and probably even one of the accounts that helped ramp up the pressure on MLB to kind of crack down on what pitchers can put on the ball. So a few things. Let's start with why TikTok and why was your focus so dominated by the sticky stuff?
Why TikTok is a great question. I guess TikTok, the way it works is if you've got something that's solid or grabs attention, it's going to grab attention based off how TikTok works, right? Like if it's something I thought foreign substance was the type of thing that could really blow up, and it's showing it to a new generation. TikTok is mainly under 25 years old.
Right.
So in my mindset, I was like, it drove me nuts because a lot of people think that I assume that foreign substance is something that just happened in the last 3 years. It's like they don't think that I know of its existence all pretty much.
Yeah.
The first curveball was a cheat pitch, right?
Yeah.
So, but the point was with foreign substance and TikTok, it was a younger audience. So I was like, if I show it to the youth of America, that's the next generation of sports fans, and I don't think Major League Baseball wants the next generation to think of baseball as full of cheating because they're just done with all these cheating scandals. And honestly, to me, this was the one that it's like the opposite of steroids, if that makes sense. Steroids. Yes. Brought people, don't get me wrong, I hate the steroid era and all that stuff and the boosted numbers and everything, but it brought people to the game and it made the game kind of larger than life. This made it larger than life for the pitchers, which made it boring as hell. Strikeouts, yes. Jumping 10-15%. You don't want to go see a 3.5-hour game that's 90 minutes of a guy walking to the plate and walking back to the dugout, right? Because it's that, and baseball is boring, and I'm like, it's boring right now. It's boring right now with 16 strikeout games, guys coming out pumping 12, 13 strikeouts every time out, 3 hits every time out. And there's no it's not dependent on feel, pitchers be like, I'm not feeling it today. You only feel it maybe a third of the season.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Garrett Cole was feeling it since 2018. Let's be honest. He had felt it for 3 straight years.
So then let's get into that a little bit because you did touch on this. Obviously, guys have been loading the ball up since there was a ball, right?
Yeah.
It is something that has been prevalent throughout baseball for so long. And I think it was part of the pushback to when this started to come to the forefront, right? Is that old school baseball guys were like, well, we've been putting pine tar on there forever. And hitters even like it because they don't wish to get hit with the ball. But what people kind of missed is that we're not just talking pine tar, right? We're not talking mixing sunscreen and rosin. We're talking stuff that was made in a lab. We're talking stuff that, you can hang cinder blocks off your hands.
If you see some of the videos that I made, specifically John Means, he is ripping his fingers out of the glove. He has to his fingers are contorting as he pulls his fingers out of the glove. It's not something sticky that I don't know if you saw the video of Pedro on MLB Network where he was burning rosin in his fingers. Mm-hmm. And he's really rubbing it to the point where it sounds like he's got I don't know, lizard skin. It's his skin's just like it's rubbing together, like you can hear the grip.
Yeah.
And like that's all that stuff is fine. The stuff that bothers me is like literally when it seems like they have a hot glue gun out there and they're super gluing their fingers to the ball. And the effects of that aren't control. Like the effects, like some people can say that it's helping some pitchers with control, but the majority were doing the Trevor Bauer route, trying to follow his Cy Young and
it's all
make
spin
150 million.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's the I don't know, it was the COVID of baseball because it spread like a disease, like Bauer comes in and he's watching other people do it, says all these people are doing it. Nobody cares. Yeah. He starts doing it, wins the Cy Young, signs $140 million deal. I'm going to do it. Like, I don't even pitch. I don't even play Major League Baseball. I started doing it for no reason at all. Like, when I went to the bathroom, I was doing it. It's just like, so it didn't, clearly, if you're a pitcher and all that you do is pitch and think pitching all the time, because that's who you are, clearly 60% of the league followed suit. And that's why you saw, I think Pitching Ninja did a graph where you saw the like 60% of the league saw a standard deviation drop, like 60% of the league. So, and that was like my number. That was, I said between at like most of the year, I was like 50 to 60%, not 99.9% of the league is cheating. Everyone tells me, like John Boy Media was like, it's 99%. They're not going to do anything about it. And I'm like, it looks like 1905 out there, it's like nobody's hitting the ball.
Yeah.
It's it had a really, really bad effect on the game. And I'm glad that, like, I'm shocked that here we are 3 months later and it's been
something was actually done. Absolutely. And this is, I think, something that baseball fans don't know, is that when it comes to spin rate, and this was something that was really interesting, we got to sit down with Toronto Blue Jays prospect Joey Murray, and he's actually known as one of the top spin rates in all of baseball. Like, he's a 1%er. And he even was telling us, he's like, I have no idea how I do it. He's like, honestly, like, people have been pointing out to me that I throw the ball differently since I was in my early teens. And he was like, it is impossible to increase your spin rate, or almost impossible, without using something. And like, this was one thing that where like, he had a Yankee scout come up to him and be like, I know why you're so good, and if we can draft you, I'll tell you, otherwise, you're on your own to figure it out. But it was really interesting to hear a guy who's known for spin rate be like, I don't know how I'm doing it, and I also know that it can't just be increased by changing your grip.
Well, Joey Murray is a guy who, I mean, throws in the low 90s, but still led the entire Blue Jays organization in strikeouts in 2019, right? So that's how significant having a high spin rate can be, right?
Yeah, because guys who throw 92 don't lead organizations in strikeouts. Like, that's not normally a thing.
The velocity of pitches, like, that's, if you a badly located 101 mile an hour fastball is going to get tuned up. Ask Cole and Devers, right? Like, it's just 101 velocity. And it's something where, like, you listen to MLB Network and they're like, the velocity's gotten so out of hand. Like, pitchers are so strong and so powerful. And it's like, no, their balls were defying gravity. They were doing things that physics couldn't explain. And that's mainly, like, your eye is perceiving the ball and where it's going to go based on your understanding of gravity and physics and all of that stuff. And your mind is tuning and making those calculations, like, pretty much without you knowing. And the best hitters have that ability to just kind of know exactly where that ball is going to be, and they meet it with the bat. But now the ball was maintaining its vertical angle. The break on it was like 30%. Like 30% more spin. 30% more spin has to be to the tune of that similar amount of break being added. Like, if you're adding 15 to 20% and you're already at the top, you were already Garrett Cole. You're already throwing at 100, and then your ERA drops into the 1.3s. Like, I was not having it. I wasn't going to have that stuff, especially with his for the next 10 years, right? 8 more years,
Oh, absolutely, man. And this is another thing too, is that, like, now that the divide was really interesting to watch because most baseball fans have been hit with cheating scandals enough that they're like, can we just enough, right? Like get it out of the game. But with this particular one, there were so many old ball players who didn't get, maybe not get is the wrong term, but just viewed it as the same as what they were doing in the 80s. And it's not.
No.
And now that this crackdown has happened, it's great to see. But guys like yourself and accounts that were pointing this out and really making it a big deal got a ton of hate. I know you brought up John Means. I'm sure Baltimore fans are not your fans.
No, there's a bunch of Reddits and like personal discussion boards about how I know nothing about baseball, which I find pretty funny. But and then literally as time went by, every one of those messages pretty much proved that I kind of knew what I was talking about. And all of them were, speaking from here while I was talking from up here. But yeah, it's
like you got hate.
The first 3 weeks, it was like I was getting a lot of direct messages on TikTok from like burner accounts, and I'd see a lot of that like green gun emoji, like I see you in the streets, green gun emoji, and I'm like, I was a little worried at the beginning, but it's like, who am I really, right?
Yeah.
Like Jackie Robinson wasn't killed. Like that's somebody who really did something and pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah.
And he made it, and he's, so nobody's going to come after some guy who's making TikTok videos. But at the point, it was pretty shocking to see.
To be getting death threats over pointing out a guy who's cheating, like that's crazy. It's legit insane.
Yeah, it's, I'm like I said, I'm glad now. And even teams, like a lot of Yankees fans hated me early on, but now they understand it because it's not like in the beginning it was Means and Cole that I would show. Means threw a no-hitter doing it. So that to me was like a point to talk about.
You can't ignore that.
Cole had the long-term contract and everything seemed like, I went back and I started watching 2019 World Series videos, and like John, I can't remember who put out, there was one Garrett Cole sticky hat video kind of before I started doing Foreign Substance. That's like the only one that existed. And I was like, well, look at his numbers. The numbers would say if he's using it now and the numbers are the same for the last 3 years, I would assume that he's been using it for the last 3 years. Let's go back and check. And, there he is in the World Series and sticky hat, and, he's a sticky guy, and he's been sticky for 3 years now. So it's, he's going to get to cash. He's got $1/3 billion. So it's not like he should be so mad. He's got $1/3 billion.
And it's not personal against Garrett Cole. Like
personal.
I'll be honest.
Thing.
I'm a Jays fan. I can't stand Garrett Cole, but with or without sticky stuff, the guy can pitch.
100%.
The guy is dominant, right? So with this light being shone on the cheating and the sticky stuff, it's not necessarily taking anything away from these pitchers, but it's saying that these guys that are really good pitchers are not elite, and the elite pitchers should be given more attention, right? Like the guys,
Well, like DeGrom, I never thought DeGrom was doing anything, right? And it's been backed like by his team, and his numbers after are still incredibly good. But it moves the bar so we understand who is who. And it's that like I think a lot of fans assume that when I said Garrett Cole's going to fall off, like my number that he would fall off to, I'm like 260 ERA. He's a 260 ERA. He's a 230 to 250 strikeout guy. Not 324. He doesn't strike out 324 guys. He doesn't. He's not that good. And as soon as so that's like still an all-star.
Yes.
That's just not generational God, That's not Sandy
It's not
Koufax
Jacob deGrom. Exactly.
Right. So it's like people, I think, assume that he would go to out of the league bad, which doesn't make any sense, because in Pittsburgh, when he wasn't doing it, he was still a 2 ERA guy.
Yeah, he was still phenomenal.
Yeah. So it's just like, I've never said that these guys would completely, like Corbin Burns incredible spin rate, but the walks he went 58 strikeouts without a walk. Garrett Cole then beats that record like right after. Like they just, if they wanted to, they could do it, right? Like I just want to throw 60 straight strikeouts without walking anybody. It's like that's superhuman. That is so superhuman. It's ridiculous, and it's those, it's that nibbling at the corner, and you don't hit 4 pitches in your sequence, and you walk a guy. Oh, and then everything unravels, and that's where that ERA jumps from 125 to 280, which is where it should be, because I don't know, 120 means it was there. So many guys. I saw a list in the National League, and it was DeGrom followed by like Yu Darvish, who was doing it, Trevor Bauer, who was doing it, Brandon Woodruff, who was doing it, and Corbin Burns, who was doing it. So it was like DeGrom alone, and then 4 guys cheating underneath him just to try to keep up. And it's
June 23rd, the crackdown happened, and we've seen some major differences in the pitching. So I think the crackdown was needed. I think that it is working.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's working. It's working. I don't know if I would have kind of like, I said give them to the All-Star break originally in like May. I was like, don't just give them
like a switch,
and make them stop. Like, so I was a little perturbed when they
because baseball never does anything right, man. Like as soon as there's a problem, they ignore it until they have to freaking deal with it, and then they overreact. This is just like baseball 101.
with the videos I was putting out, the reason it was I said it was like the anti-steroids is because steroids was offense and behind closed doors. The needles are going into each other's butts where no one can see it. This was killing offense, and visually the cheating is right there.
Yeah,
the cheating is right there for you to see. And I think I just assumed that MLB knew guys like me were not gonna lay off it. Like I was gonna make cheating videos for the next 10 years if I had to make cheating videos for the next 10 years. And for them to jump on it because of like Houston trash can banging and that stuff went for 3 years. Steroids like went from like Canseco in the 80s through 2005 was the Mitchell report. That's like 18 years. That was an entire Jose Canseco career of steroids.
MLB the whole time is like, nothing to see here, no problems, just sweep it under the rug until it blows up in our face.
And then like they caused, I believe that they also caused the foreign substance epidemic because they bought out Rawlings, so they own the balls that they make, and then they augment the balls, make the pitchers angry, make the pitchers go out, seek something else so they can feel comfortable on the mound. Home runs skyrocket. So they like, instead of juicing the players, they juiced the ball. They wanted the same effect. Manfred wanted the same effect as the 90s. So it's like, let's just juice the ball. And then no player's a cheater. We're the cheaters as a league, and nobody really cares about that. And so the pitchers are like, well, come on, let's find a little bit more level ground here so that opposite field like flares aren't going out. And so they start loading up a ton, and it's like there needs to be a middle ground here. They keep going to the polar opposite ends of the spectrum when like nobody was against sunscreen and rosin. Nobody was against that combination, and now you can get in trouble for having too much
sunscreen and rosin. It's crazy.
It's like so in the collective bargaining agreement in the off season, they need to find the middle ground. They need to find the substance that they can agree on so that it's like, this is allowed, here it is on the back of the mound, and everything else is cheating.
So you've probably even heard this, but there's a conspiracy that's widely believed among players that even goes deeper than that the balls are being doctored year to year depending on the biggest free agent class, right? Where when it was the hitters that were hitting free agency, all of a sudden the ball is being deadened, and and vice versa when the pitchers were the ones where the most stars that were going to be free agents they were juicing the balls to increase the numbers, right? And I don't know how true that is, but also think about the distrust amongst MLBPA towards the MLB for that to even be a thing, right? Like,
oh yeah. And to me, I've heard that. I think it was Pete Alonso saying that.
yes, it was Alonso who said it. Yeah.
Who went off against the Jays, but
yeah, didn't he?
I don't think it's that so much. I think it's more the idea that I think they augmented the balls specifically for home runs.
Yes.
I think that's what it was. They know how entertaining the home run is. The home run has always brought the fans back. Babe Ruth brought the fans back after the Black Sox scandal. It's just the home run chase, Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris, that brought fans in. Then the chase with Sosa McGuire, it just brought fans in. People love to see the ball hit far. And
even Bonds in 02, where it was just like people knew he was juiced.
Yeah.
And it was still the most fun thing to watch. Like,
well, you had people on both sides, right? You had people that really wanted to see him get the record, and then you had people tuning in just to hope he didn't get it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
polarized. It's like you want to, heroes and villains are what you need in a sport, right? Like Houston did all that cheating, but that hatred that we have to see them lose, now we want other teams that we don't really care about to beat them. So we have this invested interest now because of the hate that's developed. So hate is a good thing. Like hating on a team, like hating on the Yankees is a good thing for baseball. Not like it's who the Yankees are. It's the mantle that they take up, and it's healthy for baseball for them to be in contention and like lose in the second round of the playoffs, right?
Yes, that is, I agreed 100%. So out of curiosity, my man, with this crackdown that happened, what are you doing with the Hey Commie account these days? Like, now that the sticky stuff has kind of been put to bed, what has your focus been?
Oh, well, I actually get to make baseball videos that I'm happy to make and I'm kind of proud of, right? Like optimistic, good content. But there's like the first 3 months of the season, like the first month specifically, I was so down with those videos. If you go back and watch like the very first Hey Commie video about Garrett Cole cheating, it's like I'm on my couch and I'm like, oh, Garrett Cole's cheating again. He's going in the glove. And you can just hear the depression on my voice, right? I'm just sad that this is the state of the game. And then now I'm like,
baseball's doing it again.
Yeah. And I'm just down and I don't want to expose this and I don't want it to be. And then they dealt with it. And now it's like, and then Ohtani hit like home runs in 6 straight games and Tatis had a 3-homer game. And it's just like, and the stars got to shine, the stars that they want to shine started to really, really, really shine. And
let's talk about that for a second, because I'm starting to feel like there's a new renaissance happening in baseball where there's these young, exciting players to watch doing things that we haven't seen done before, like bringing up Ohtani and the Tatises of the world, Vladdy Jr., who at 22 is chasing down a triple crown. Like, this is stuff as a fan, like, you don't get to see very often. Are you feeling that a bit? Like, is baseball, and I mean your platform in particular, TikTok being, picking up that younger demographic, are you noticing that?
I feel like it's the most talented youth crop in my generation, in my lifetime. There's never been this talent in the game. I think you have to go back to the like Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, Duke Snyder era in New York, where you have like, you don't even have nearly as many teams, honestly, back then, but you had that like core youth group growing up together. Like Tatis he hit 50 home runs, stole 50 bases, 20 games faster than Acuna, who had the record before him. Okay. Ohtani doing the Babe Ruth thing. Guerrero, his season right now is like OPS plus wise, it's 30% better than Miguel's triple crown year. Okay. Miguel had his triple crown, like that kind of shows you that triple crown is all the stars need to line up for a triple crown to happen, right?
It's why it's such a rare feat.
Yeah, it's such a rare feat. But like his OPS that year was 999. Vladdy's is 1084, 1085, pitch him the way they pitched Bonds in that steroid era. They don't. He hits a home run, and then like Garrett Richards threw him 9 straight balls after that home run in Boston. It's just like they're terrified of him. He can cover. He covers everything. He covers everything. He has 9 opposite field home runs this year. The guy is. I've never seen a bat like that. You know, and it's like, oh, what about this guy? What about that guy? Not at 22.
No,
not at 22. Not at 22.
That's the thing is that the youth in baseball and what that youth is doing is phenomenal. I mean, you brought up Acuna, Juan Soto. Even a guy to go to another Jays guy, right? Like, even though it took 3 years for Bo Bichette to get to his 162 games, he's only 23, and literally he's breaking records for those 162 games.
I remember him, and it was like him and DiMaggio for extra base hits over there, like the first start, and he really is incredible. That home run that he hit game 2 against the Mets, the 440 upper tank shot inside where he gets his bat through, like the bat speed that kid has, his 2-strike approach. When you get to 2, don't get me wrong, he strikes out a lot because of his aggressiveness at the plate. But some of those at bats where he's got 2 strikes, 6 more pitches go, and then he flares a base hit, or he grooves a 2-strike homer. He is so good.
I mean, it's kind of wild how overshadowed he's being by Vladdy right now. And I don't think anybody, Jays fans or anybody, really can appreciate the fact that, like, he's the 300 hitter with that aggressive swing.
Oh yeah.
Like,
it's and
even saying it is ridiculous, because you watch that swing and you're like, that is not somebody who hits 300.
That's a Joey. That's what you
same jumps in that organization. Oh yeah, that's like the team. Like, I think of how Vladdy took this step. That was more of an athletic step for him, because to me, he had never faced any real opposition in the game. He never faced a challenge coming all the way up. He batted 400 his entire life until he got to the pros, and that was a step. He's like, oh, I actually have to like work a little bit.
That's hilarious too, right? That his obstacle was getting in shape. Like, not that, let's face it, I mean, he was in better shape than any of us.
Oh,
but like, like, to be elite, you need to be in elite shape, and he kind of figured that out.
And like,
22 to figure that out, also super impressive, right?
Like, Bo, like, what? Bo was this 300 hitter, but Bo was like, the one thing, this isn't nearly as important as the other aspects, but his base stealing this year has been incredible. And this year, like, I love. To me, I'm almost like Moneyball and analytics, right? Everybody moneyballs now, so nobody moneyballs, right? Nobody's moneyballing if everybody's moneyballing, because Moneyball doesn't even refer to analytics as a concept. It refers to doing something drastically different than go against the stream, right? Like, if you built a team right now of speedsters and just put speed out there and tried to bunt and Baltimore chop and do a bunch of speed stuff, you would be technically trying a Moneyball thing, just in a different route. And what I love about the Jays is that base running aggressiveness. Houston's doing it really, really well. Houston had a series against the Jays earlier in the year, and every opportunity they had to take the extra base, they took it. And I think that's because their like analytics department is potentially like reimagining stats, because like you don't get an OPS boost from stealing second base. You don't get some, but what's the difference between a 2-out double and a guy getting a base hit and stealing second, right? It's not, as long as there's no base runners on, fundamentally it's the same thing, right? But that stolen base, like base run, you look at the Yankees can't get a double, a triple, a stolen base to save their lives. They don't have it. They've literally stopped playing baseball because of the search of OPS at every position. You need Glaber should be your shortstop. It's like, that guy's not.
No, he should not.
That's not a shortstop. And any team that I would ever create, I would rather have a 650 OPS guy like Ozzie Smith at shortstop, making every play he needs to, and a few that he shouldn't, as opposed to booting the ones he should always make. That's just drives me nuts.
So what is your opinion on this? Because metrics and analytics is the backbone to Major League Baseball in 2021. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not following it, you are falling far behind every other organization. How much do you think the analytics side of the game is important, and how much is it maybe overblown, if at all?
Well, it's really important to the point where if you're not watching the game, it's too important. If you don't watch the game like Billy Beane and you're like, I don't watch the games, and you just look at a bunch of numbers and you don't see what's going on the field, like you can't. They have like a defensive zone rating. They have a bunch of analytical stats that will like measure you on all aspects. But like when you've got the shift now, you don't play guys straight up. You're shifting them to the maximum like percentage place that a play is going to go to. So you're not really truly testing their range. You've got infielders banging into each other now, going for balls. Like I don't know if you see, like you've got two guys going for a ball and they're like me or you. It's like there would never be that issue because they were spread out.
At the Roxbury on the right side of the infield.
Yeah, I see that all the time now, where two guys are going like because they're shifted so close together that they both are 8 steps away from the ball and they want to go for it.
Sometimes those Joey Gallo shifts, you're just like, how is this a thing?
Yeah, and so righty, then, when they do it to righties, that's hilarious, especially against the Jays, because Jays love to poke the ball to right field.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
So my question for you then is, how do you feel about all this talk of the rule change of abolishing the shift? I mean, for me, it's frustrating because I'm like, how can guys not hit enough to make them stop doing this, right? Like, how can you leave this side of the infield completely open and not take advantage of that? But at the same time, maybe that is how you make baseball more exciting.
Well, I do wish that hitters would, like, there is something to hitters getting off the dead pull approach, getting off the launch angle approach. Some do it. Not everyone. Mostly what's taught in Major League Baseball is hit the ball hard. If you go to pretty much any hitting coach, the thing that they're trying to do is level swing plane and hit the ball hard. Who has really got this going on? There's a lot of vertical finishes that come up and over the shoulder that people assume as launch angles. But when you look at a lot of those swings, they're coming through the zone pretty flat. And so don't get me wrong, that is a part of it, trying to hit the home run. You can see that is a focus, but like, to me, abolishing the shift, that's a tough one, because when I think about the World Series, when I think about playoff baseball, which is a very different thing than regular season baseball. Of course,
totally different animal.
Regular season baseball is that, like when you think of the analytical approach, like Oakland, they're trying to get 96 wins to get into the playoffs, to lose 3 and just get bounced out because they've got a team that can win a good percentage in over 162. But when it gets to playoff time, it's like, what's going to win you those games? It's those missed plays where you get like, I think about Washington, the Nationals, how they beat Houston. Did they beat Houston with a New York Yankees team? No, they had Soto, who was a threat in the middle. Rendon was a threat. But it's like guys like Adam Eaton, Howie Kendrick, Trey Turner. They're baseball players.
Yes.
Right. Those are baseball players who hit the ball. Like Trey's case, he's got speed. Like you're going to have a hell of a time if you got a 2-hopper, 3-hopper up the line and Trey Turner's going up the line, right? Like you've got to be able to field a defense that is going to make all of those plays.
Well, you touched on this with OPS has been such a dominant stat that people will put. Well, I mean, you can look at this Blue Jays team for an example, right? Their best second baseman is playing third base. Their best shortstop is playing second base. Like their best right fielder is playing center field. So, I mean, you start to do that. And yes, diversity and the ability to play all over the field is incredibly important, especially in today's game. But it's almost to the point where, like you said, you get to playoff baseball and all of a sudden the teams that advance, they're the defensively sound teams. They're the teams that aren't giving up errors, that aren't giving up extra bases here and there, that are able to stop the running game. Because
Mhm.
there's so many teams that, like, I bet you there's 15 teams that you can just run on all day long.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
50% where it's just like, it doesn't
And you're
matter.
running
They're
on the
just not
pitcher.
good enough to keep them on base.
You're running on the pitcher because they're like, don't worry about the runner.
Yeah.
And it's just pretty much defensive indifference. And you're like,
Well, I'll take that 90 feet.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's I don't know. It is shocking to me. And the other thing that's shocking to me about this shift is that, like, the shift, it annoys me. But then what annoys me the most is when I see a ground ball to shortstop and there's no shortstop. There's no shortstop in this most standard shortstop position. And you just see this like 8-hopper dribble through at the shortstop position. And you're like, huh? That's an out for the last 100 years of the game. And now they were way over there.
You're like, why? Yeah, exactly. That is such
And you
a
don't
good point, man.
want it's almost like you don't want the infielders, you don't want to see their maximum range, their maximum ability. You don't want to put them out there spread out even and see that incredible range going deep into the hole. Let's just put them in the hole.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, oh, so I don't know.
That like you said, not being able to showcase that extraordinary range, that's where the gold is in baseball. Like, I've been a baseball fan since I could walk, but I'll be the first to admit 90% of the game pretty dull, right?
Yeah.
But it has some of the best highlights in all of sports.
Oh, absolutely.
Every single
Absolutely.
night, every single game, someone is making some sort of a miraculous diving, wild catch or something. And that's great to watch. And we've shifted it where it doesn't exist anymore. And it's ludicrous.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that, like, as soon as the strikeout percentages dropped, it seemed like the web gems where it was like a year. I watched best of the week, MLB best of the week, and it seemed like an MLB best of the year.
Yeah.
It was so many web gems, so many amazing plays, and yeah, like we love the strikeout, but the second baseman going up the middle, turning and making that like spin throw. Same thing with shortstop. Third base going over the foul line, making that bullet throw. Like, that's what we want to see. It's because it's the anticipation of, is this a hit? And then you get to the edge of your seat and you watch the throw and bang, bang.
Yeah.
Did
all
he beat
that
it
gets
out?
the senses, not just strike three, go back to the dugout. You know, that's
Joel, where are you at on video replay? Because it's a serious problem, right? Like, we're at the point in baseball where it's like a major problem.
So my issue is that the play on the field gains some sort of superiority in the review process. You know, it's almost like passing it. Think about it this way: it's like you're an umpire, and you know that you can be reviewed, right? So you make a call based on what you think it is, and you're like, well, at least somebody's going to go back me up in New York, and then somebody goes in New York, and they're like, I don't know, let's just say that that's right, you know, and
5 minutes goes by, completely kills the momentum of the game.
And I've seen some. I saw. I'm trying to think of the one play, the Jays play, where it was a play at home, and it was like a 3-minute review, 5-minute review. It was with I think it was with Yasmani Grandal was making a play on somebody.
Right. And then they still got it wrong, right?
And they still got it wrong. And I actually watched both broadcasts. You know, I watched both commentary teams, and both commentary teams were exactly of the same sound in mind. And then they went against that, and it took 6 minutes. And I was just like, oh, you know, it's like, if there's a 30-second timer on you being able to decide whether there's a challenge or not, then
why is it 8 minutes for them to decide what's happening after that? Exactly.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's just,
how do you fix it? Like, is it fixable, or do they have to actually scale it back? Like, I just feel like if we're going to be taking this sort of time to get the call right, get the call right. You know what? But I don't know what the answer is to this.
Here's what it comes down to: it comes down to a bad decision today is better than a good decision tomorrow, right? And we kind of see that with the Cleveland baseball team, the Cleveland Guardians now, right? The Guardians is a lame name, but if they had have decided that, like, Last year they were like, yeah, Indians is offensive. We can't use that anymore. But give us a year to think of a good name. And then they still think of a bad name. If they had announced the Guardians back then, where they're like, hey, we got to get rid of
Double
the
A
Indians.
team
This is
name.
bad. But
Yeah.
let's do something. Then you go, okay, well, whatever. Guardians is kind of lame, but it's at least we're moving forward, right? But it's like to take a year and then still come up with a
Like to
I don't know.
brainstorm it right now, right? I put up a bunch of videos on TikTok. They all got taken down because they were like controversial, I guess. Or I was saying like, first of all, I understand there's a group out there, a perspective where it's like, don't name something after the Native American culture and try to take money off of that. It's like, first of all, I don't think that you're trying to take money off the Native American culture. I think you're trying to make money in baseball. I think that's all you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You're just trying to make money in with a baseball team. And if you wanted, like, the Chicago Blackhawks have a affiliation with a Black Hawk tribe where they work like in Congress together to support each other because they honor what they represent.
Yes.
Okay? And with the Indians, the Cleveland Indians were named after the first Aboriginal baseball player. The first Native American baseball player is the reason they named that team the Indians. And nobody ever thinks about the idea of, it's like, that team was named in like 1910. How progressive is it in 1910 to name your team the Indians?
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually a rather progressive thing to do. You're like, no, this is the thing that you're going to go and cheer for, is 1910 Indian. It's like, it's wrong. It's the wrong
Nomenclature, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
It's the wrong word. It's the wrong logo. You know, it's a red-skinned Chief Wahoo logo that's
Chief
out of
Wahoo's
date and has to
awful.
go.
Absolutely. But you're right, man. And this is such a, you know what I love about this, Joel, is this is the first time I've heard this take of like how progressive they actually were to start things off. Like in 1910,
we don't do that history. Like, baseball is history to me. To me, baseball, you got to know the history of it and the decisions that they were making back then. And you don't name your team something that's you make fun of. You don't name your team the Detroit clown cars. You know, you're in Detroit and you've got Motor City. You don't call it a clown. You know, you make it you make something that symbolizes the town. Now, don't
the Tigers, right? Which everyone sees all over Detroit. Yes.
So the Pistons, right? Like it's a vehicular thing. And with the Indians, it was just like, I sat there for 5 minutes and I was like, if you wanted to do the Black Hawk route, you go find like a Native American group and you can call yourself like you can do this double C's. You can go Cheyenne, you can go Cherokee, you could go Iroquois to keep the I for the Indian I if you wanted to, or you could go tribe, the Cleveland tribe. You know, we just call them the tribe all the time. We've been calling them the tribe forever. That to me it just sit down with the Native American groups and say, is this work? Is this work? And we want to have you guys like come in and like show off your culture. You know, we want to be proud of our connection to you. We want to support
because that's how this organization started, is proud of our connection with you.
And instead it's like they took we're completely embarrassed and it's like we feel shame for our history. And it's like, no, when I watched the late 90s Cleveland Indians, you know, with like Albert Bell, like I was really young, but like that team had the heart of that city. And they love that team so much, you know. In Atlanta, they love the Braves, and you know, there isn't in Edmonton. We love the Eskimos. Now, like, it's just these terms aren't derogatory because you something that you buy the jersey of and you champion and you wear around in sport is something that you take pride in, right? And so to go the route of Guardians, which was this stand-up comedian, I don't know who he was. He's like, they took the name Indians away from the team that I love most, which was named that to represent the first Native American, and named it after Guardians, which was a bridge that my best friends have drunk driven over 100 times, you know? And I'm like, and it's like, it's such a name that you have to research what Guardian, it's a bridge that connects the like area. And you're like, that's so specific and unknown, you know, that's not So I don't, and Guardian's such a double A name. It's just such a double A name.
That's a great way of putting it. It is a double A name. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
All right. So let's go in a little different direction here, Joel. Some people might not know you're also a screenwriter. And I know we might not be able to get into too many details here, but you actually wrote a Tommy John screenplay and it's getting some traction. Yes. And you even talked to Tommy yesterday, right?
Yeah, a few days ago.
Days ago. So wild, buddy. How was that? That must have been pretty surreal.
Yeah. It's nuts. He's a really, really nice guy. He's a really, really nice guy. And it's funny because right now I'm. Yeah, the surgery, Tommy John. Yeah. He's 78 now. Yeah, the surgery. I've got the, I don't know if I can put it up there.
There you go. Yeah.
Tommy John right there. And it's, yeah, I wrote it spec. That means that you're not writing it for a production company or anything. It was solely my idea. It was, you want to know what gave me the idea? It was Buck Martinez always saying Tommy John surgery. Like whenever a new pitcher comes into the game, you're going to get that breakdown from Buck about Tommy John, right? And I'm like, well, it's the most used name in the sport.
Yeah.
It's the most used name in the sport. Every game, you're going to hear Tommy John. You're not going to hear Babe Ruth every game. You're not going to hear Ted Williams every game. You're going to hear Tommy John every single game, sometimes 3 times a game.
Yeah.
And I was like
100% of pitchers aren't getting Ted Williams surgery.
No.
No.
It's the thing that's built into the game, and it's not going anywhere soon. It's the best surgery in sport. It's the best it is. And so I said to myself, I'm like, there's this built-in advertisement every single game. You're like, oh, isn't there a movie called Tommy John? I should go watch that, And then you get to the point where commentators would be like, hey, there's a Tommy John movie out there that pretty much explains this entire thing, so it almost builds off of each other. One advertises the other. And it's the story, once you dive into it, it's a lot more than just a guy who had surgery.
Yeah.
It's so much more than that. The guy won 288 games.
Yeah.
288 games, he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
He won 164 games after 35. It's just he's amazing. And he's a completely different style of pitcher. He's a pitcher who, if there was a threat at the plate, he would walk that guy and then he would get a double play on the next guy. Pretty sure he led Major League Baseball in double plays induced. So that's
never gives in.
Yeah, just different concept. He sees the lineup. He's not going. He's like, I can beat the next guy, so I'll put this guy on. He's thinking. Is a chess player who's thinking moves ahead, as opposed to I'm just going after this guy, going after this guy, going after this guy. And such a nice guy. The comeback story of the doctor, Dr. Job. A lot of that, the story has to do with how amazing of a doctor he was that nobody knows about, because normally it would normally have been the Frank Job surgery. Mm-hmm. Right. But he's like, no, Tommy was the one who sacrificed himself and went through it. Let's name it Tommy John. It's got a nice ring to it. So
and I think just to jump in real quick here, one thing that people may not even know is that before Tommy John surgery became a thing, pitchers just retired.
Yeah, it was the end. Sandy Koufax retired in fear of the injury that would come.
Yeah.
And the doctor that fixed Tommy John was Sandy Koufax, orthopedic surgeon who was there watching Sandy ice himself after every game and go into handshake mode, after a no-hitter. He'd throw a no-hitter and then his hand would be doing this and he wouldn't be able to do anything for 3 days. And it's so he had to sit there and watch the greatest pitcher potentially of all time call it quits at 30, so that haunted the doctor. And then he created the remedy through dealing with polio patients who blew out their Achilles tendons.
Wow.
And so
think just to put it in perspective here, the Toronto Blue Jays took in the first round this year Gunnar Hoagland, who is literally going to miss the next year because he's having Tommy John. This is a 21-year-old kid.
Yeah.
This is a kid that just
don't care.
Before
Nobody
he
cares.
even
The surgery is it's accepted now. It's DeGrom, Ohtani, Corey Seager,
I know, it's
right?
wild.
Like this Salvador Perez.
Well, and this. I mean, so I read Jeff Passan's book, The Arm, which is basically a deep dive into pretty much, as he describes, the epidemic that is arm injuries in pitching.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting to read about how everyday Tommy John has become, and that it's sort of on a negative side also, with kids are getting it younger and younger and younger, and pitchers have become more and more disposable almost, right? Where it's like, okay, well, and a lot of people don't know this too. 92% of Tommy John surgeries are successful, but only 24% of second Tommy John surgeries. Like, once you need to do it again, like you get one shot at this.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of.
Sorry to derail you there.
No. There's I'm trying to think of the pitcher. For I think he was on the Nationals. He's a lefty reliever who was on the Braves for a long time, and he's had like 4 of them.
Yeah,
he's had 4 Tommy Johns, and he keeps Tommy Johning, trying to come back. And it, like you said, after that, but Tommy John's the original, he got it at 34. He pitched till he was 46. Never missed a game.
Wow.
Never missed a game due to arm soreness.
That was a time too where sports science was almost non-existent, right? Like they would just put guys out there and be like, "Yeah, sure, throw 300 pitches."
They would throw 300 innings.
Yeah, it's
they
insane.
Would throw 300 innings. Like, oh man, like you look at like guys like Catfish Hunter.
Oh,
you go and look at their core of their career, and they're throwing like 330, 340, and you're like, and then at like 32, they don't have it anymore, and you're like, look at those. You pitched like 5 years in 3 here. Yeah. Like, it's just insane what they would do back then.
Let's say, and for anybody that doesn't know, what is a typical inning limit on a given season nowadays?
Now?
Yeah.
Now I would say it seems like it drops by 10 innings every single year. You know,
if you're throwing 180 in 2021, you're
that's
a top guy. You're a top guy.
Yeah. Roy Halladay, 10, 15 years ago, he'd do 260. Yeah. He'd do 260 innings. Then
6 years ago, 2015, 200 was the bar. That was what guys like Stroman was hitting.
Yeah. And always wanted to get to 200.
There was about 100 guys who did it. And now, like, I don't know how many guys are going to hit 200 innings this year, but I bet you it's half a dozen at the most.
They max out at like 212.
Yeah.
Fun fact, nobody hit it last year.
Yeah, right. You got us.
That's right. Yeah, I think max out last year was like 70. I think some guys were throwing 70, but like, yeah, innings pitched. Okay, so we were talking earlier about how analytics have gotten to a point where they're almost too much. Well, I feel like the radar gun was the tool given to the scouts to before the radar gun, before 1974, it was an eye test. You go out and get outs, and that's what mattered. They don't care about that. They care about this number that reads on the radar gun. And
does he hit 100? Can we teach him to throw a changeup?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Power pitchers everywhere. The diversity of like Simber.
Yeah, right? Simber. Great
Simber,
example.
you got your side armor, right? He can beat you with 88.
Yeah,
he beat you with an 88 mile an hour fastball because of the delivery point, and that thing is coming down and up.
Yeah, it looks like it's rising. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that's not popping no radar gun. That
is a Moneyball move.
Yes, to me, the diversity of pitching is been lost for the seeking of K per 9. And can we equal out the walks strikeout rate, right? Like, can we get that so it's pretty manageable, and then just get a guy out there throwing 102 and hope that works? But there's so much. That's like all that they're teaching is throwing. That's throwing. That's not pitching. And some of the greatest pitchers of all
pitching
time
has become a lost art, man.
Maddox would be Maddox now. Yeah. Like, if you want to say that Greg Maddux would come in and not be Greg Maddux in this day and age, he'd probably be more Greg Maddux.
Yeah.
He would probably be more, because when guys like Kwang Hyun Kim in St. Louis, Ryu, when he's on, like the pitcher is still the ultimate thing, but it's not.
Yeah.
How do you rate pitching? No, you 91.
Yeah.
This guy's no good. You know, they're not looking at the pitching; they're looking at this number that says if he's a good pitcher or not, and that's just not the case. That's just not the case.
Agreed. Joel, honestly, man, thank you so much for taking the time to talk some baseball with us. We've had so
Love
much
it.
fun. We'll have to have you back on, dude, because this
Totally.
was great. This hour flew by, man.
I can't even believe it went by that fast.
Right. Before we let you go, did you have anything you wanted to add, plug, talk real quick about anything?
Oh, well, yeah. If anybody out there isn't familiar with me, they can check me out on TikTok. It's hey_commie, COMMY, and it's just a bunch of baseball videos. If you want to see the entire kind of timeline of Foreign Substance this season, like my channel kind of does a good job at that, because you see
It does a
where
great
it was.
job. I love your channel, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
But like totally accidentally, it starts 3 months ago where it's a big deal, then it gets exposed, then you see the after effects, and it's all in just kind of my channel. You just see that naturally. So.
And where can people send their death threats to you? No.
Oh yeah.
Email your death threats to
yeah, right there is fine.
It's funny.
I'm not going to give out my home address for that.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure
All
that, when Josh Donaldson came out with his, I've got evidence of all the pitchers who are cheating. I'm pretty sure it was just a link to your TikTok page. So
that's what a lot of people said that. Fun, like what I did after he said that was I was like, if it's not that, I'm gonna actually just make the video that is Josh Donaldson's like cheating catalog.
Yeah.
I think I made one called that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Joel. Thank you so much, my man. Really appreciate your time. All the best, brother.
Thanks, Scott. Adam, you too. This was really fun. Can't wait to do it again.
We'll chat again.